A bruised kid walks
Can
into a
I
biker
work
clubhouse
here?
grown men are afraid of. Shaking hands. Black eye. He doesn't ask for money. He doesn't ask for protection. He asks one question that shuts the room down. They laugh until someone looks closer. The bruise doesn't match the story, and the fear in his eyes feels trained. Then a drunk man storms in and claims the boy. That's when one secret surfaces, and the entire town realizes they made a terrible mistake. So when the boy is finally given one choice, everyone holds their breath. What would you have done next? Welcome my beautiful family and friends to my YouTube channel. Please click on subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. Thank you specially for sticking around to this very moment. Now back to the story. There are places you don't wander into by accident. Places with doors that feel heavier than they look. Places where the air itself seems to warn you away. The biker clubhouse was one of those places. It sat at the edge of town like a scar nobody bothered to hide. Low concrete walls, windows permanently darkened, paint peeling in thick, tired flakes. The kind of building locals drove past a little faster, eyes forward, hands tight on the steering wheel. Parents warned their kids about it without ever explaining why. Grown men crossed the street rather than walk in front of it. And yet the door opened. Not kicked in. Not forced. Opened, slowly. The hinges screamed as if they hadn't been moved in years. Every sound inside the clubhouse died at once. Laughter cut off mid-breath. A pool ball stopped rolling. Music was silenced with a sharp click. Men turned toward the doorway. Not in surprise, but in instinct. The kind of instinct that comes from years of knowing trouble, doesn't knock politely. Standing there was a boy. Not a teenager trying to look tough. Not a runaway with attitude and swagger. A kid. 12 years old, maybe younger. Thin in a way that had nothing to do with growth spurts, and everything to do with missed meals. His hoodie hung off him like it belonged to someone else, someone bigger, someone who didn't need to hide inside their clothes. The sleeves swallowed his hands. The hem brushed his knees. His sneakers were falling apart, held together with duct tape that had been replaced more than once. This wasn't a fashion choice. It was survival math. And then there was his face. A bruise bloomed across his cheekbone. Purple, yellow, angry. The kind of bruise that told a story even when its owner stayed quiet. His lip was split, half-healed, like no one had bothered to check on it. One eye was slightly swollen, forcing him to blink more often than normal. His hands trembled. Not enough for the men to laugh outright. Enough for the men to notice. Someone near the bar snorted. Wrong place, kid. A few chuckles followed. Nervous ones. Dismissive ones. The kind people use when something makes them uncomfortable and they don't want to admit why. The boy didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't run. He stepped inside. The door shut behind him with a heavy thud that sounded final, like a sentence being passed. The clubhouse smelled like oil, smoke, and old leather. Years of noise and violence and loyalty soaked into the walls. This was a place built on unspoken rules, where respect was earned the hard way and weakness got you swallowed whole. And this child had walked straight into it. No one told him to leave. Not yet. He stood there, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes scanning the room without really looking at anyone. Like he'd learned long ago that eye contact could be dangerous. Like he'd learned to read moods instead of faces. A man with a beard thick as wire laughed louder than the others. What, you lost? You selling candy, or something? The boy swallowed. You could hear it. Then he spoke. His voice was quiet, but steady. Too steady for a kid in a room like this. I'm looking for work. That earned real laughter now. Someone slapped the table. Another shook his head. Work. In here. But the boy didn't smile. Didn't try to joke. Didn't soften the moment. He continued, like he'd rehearsed it. After school. I can sweep. Clean tools. Organize parts. Anything. I don't need much. He finally looked up then. And that was when the laughter began to die. Because the bruise didn't fit the story people wanted to believe. Kids fell off bikes all the time. Kids roughhoused. Kids were clumsy. But this wasn't clumsy. This bruise sat too cleanly on the bone. Too controlled. Too deliberate. And the fear in his eyes wasn't panic. It was calculation. The kind that comes from knowing the wrong answer can make things worse later. One man in the corner hadn't laughed at all. He watched the way the boy stood, feet planted like he expected to be knocked down at any second. Watched how his shoulders tensed when someone shifted in their chair. Watched how he kept his hands buried in his sleeves, like he didn't trust them to stay still. This man had seen fear before. Seen it in war zones. Seen it in interrogation rooms. Seen it in people who'd learned that pain followed questions. He stood. Boots hit concrete. Heavy. Final. The room quieted again, not because anyone said so, but because when this man moved, people paid attention. "What's your name?" he asked. The boy hesitated. Just a second. Long enough. "Noah," he said. The man nodded slowly. "How old are you, Noah?" 12. 13 soon. Another pause. "That bruise," the man said, not accusing, not gentle either. Just factual. "That from work too?" Noah's jaw tightened. "I fell." "Where?" "Off my bike." "When?" "Yesterday." The man waited. Didn't fill the silence. Didn't rescue him from it. The silence stretched thin, like wire pulled too tight. Noah shifted his weight. His eyes flickered. Not to the men, but somewhere far away. Somewhere that wasn't safe. The lie sat between them, fragile and necessary. The man nodded again, but something behind his eyes hardened. Because he knew. And because no one knew that he knew. That's when it became clear to everyone in the room. This wasn't a kid looking for pocket money. This was a kid asking for time. For space. For somewhere to be that wasn't wherever he was supposed to go when he left here. Something was wrong. Not loud wrong. Not dramatic wrong. The quiet kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that hides behind closed doors and paperwork and excuses no one checks too closely. And whatever had put that bruise on his face wasn't done with him yet. It was waiting. At home. If you believe kids shouldn't have to beg for safety, hit like right now. Comment "I see you" if you already know this isn't just a job request. Because some doors are hard to open. And some kids never should have had to knock at all. The work offer doesn't come with applause. No handshake. No speeches. No congratulations. Just rules. You show up on time. You do what you're told. You don't steal. And you don't lie. The boy nods at everyone like they're sacred vows. Because rules, real rules, mean something predictable. And predictable feels close to safe. They don't give him charity. They give him a broom. It's old. The bristles are bent. The handle has splinters worn smooth by years of hands stronger than his. Someone points toward the concrete floor and says, "Start there." No one watches him at first. That's the test. He grips the broom like it might disappear if he lets go. Starts at the far corner and works methodically, pushing dust into careful lines. He doesn't rush. Doesn't cut corners. He goes back over places that already look clean. Like he's afraid someone will check. Like he knows what happens when work isn't good enough. The men notice without meaning to. Not because he's fast. But because he's thorough. Because he doesn't complain when the dust clouds rise into his face. Because he doesn't stop when his arms start to shake. Because he doesn't ask when he can be done. He works like someone who has learned that mistakes are expensive. After an hour, someone slides a sandwich onto the table near him. No announcement. No eye contact. Just food. The boy freezes. He stares at it like it might vanish if he touches it too quickly. Like it might belong to someone else. Like it could be taken back. 5 minutes pass. 10. Finally he eats, but slowly. Carefully. Each bite measured. He chews like he's counting. Like he's learned that eating too fast can draw attention. No one rushes him. No one tells him to hurry. That alone feels wrong. The clubhouse is loud in a way that feels different now. Not sharp. Not threatening. Just noise. Men talking over each other. Tools clinking. Music humming low in the background. It's chaos, but it's honest chaos. No pretending. No guessing moods. No waiting for the moment something snaps. For the first time in a long time, the boy's shoulders drop just a little. Not enough to relax. Enough to breathe. They show him how to organize parts. Bolts in one tray. Washers in another. Sizes separated. Nothing fancy. He doesn't just sort them. He aligns them. Smallest to largest. Straight lines. Perfect spacing. The kind of order that comes from a mind trying to control something, anything, when everything else is unpredictable. One of the men watches longer than he should. This kid's not lazy, he mutters to no one in particular. Someone else grunts in agreement. Because lazy kids don't work like this. Lazy kids don't flinch when a voice raises across the room. Lazy kids don't freeze when someone drops a tool too loudly. Lazy kids don't apologize for things that aren't mistakes. This boy does. Every time. Sorry. Did I mess that up? Is this okay? Not seeking praise. Seeking permission to exist. And slowly, almost dangerously, something changes. They stop treating him like a guest. They start treating him like he belongs. Not with affection. With expectation. And expectation is powerful. He's shown where to put his things. Where to stand when bikes roll in. When to speak. When to stay quiet. Structure wraps around him like armor he didn't know existed. For a few hours a day, he isn't invisible. He's useful. He matters. But the clock doesn't stop. When the light outside starts to fade, his body changes before anyone says a word. His movements tighten. His answers shorten. His eyes keep drifting toward the door. Someone notices. You good, kid? He nods too fast. Yeah, I should head out. He puts the broom away exactly where it belongs. Wipes the table even though no one asked. Checks the floor one last time like he's afraid of leaving evidence behind. At the door, he hesitates. Just a second. Then he pulls his hoodie tighter around himself and steps outside. The air feels colder. The street feels longer. Each step away from the clubhouse pulls something out of him. By the time he reaches the end of the block, the change is visible. His shoulders curl inward like he's bracing against an impact that hasn't happened yet. His breathing goes shallow. His hands disappear back into his sleeves. The safe version of him doesn't get to come home. The yellow house waits at the end of the street. Paint peeling. Fence bent. Lights on in rooms that don't feel welcoming. It doesn't look violent. That's the worst part. It looks normal enough that no one asks questions. But his pace slows anyway. Every step closer makes him smaller. This isn't a home. Homes don't make kids rehearse explanations in their head. Homes don't make kids listen for footsteps before they open doors. Homes don't turn a boy into a shadow. The clubhouse shouldn't exist as a safe place. It's loud, rough, full of men with pasts that scare people. And yet inside those walls, no one hits him. No one yells without reason. No one makes him earn the right to eat. That contrast is dangerous. Because once a kid learns what safety feels like, going back hurts worse. Inside the yellow house, voices rise. He pauses at the door. Breath in, breath out, mask on. The version of him that survives steps forward. Behind him, the clubhouse door has already closed. And whatever is inside this house, it still owns the night. If you believe a safe place can change a life, subscribe. We tell stories where the quiet victims are finally heard. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing a broken system allows is letting a child discover what safety feels like and then forcing them to return to fear. The trouble doesn't knock. It never does. It arrives loud, careless, and convinced it owns the room. The clubhouse door slams open so hard the walls shudder. The sound cuts through conversation like a blade, sharp and unmistakable. Music dies mid-note. A wrench clatters to the concrete. Every head turns, not out of curiosity but instinct. Because this isn't the sound of a guest. It's the sound of a problem. He stumbles in with the confidence of someone who has never been told no and never expects to hear it now. Tall, broad, reeking of alcohol and entitlement. His shirt hangs loose, stained and wrinkled, buttons misaligned like he dressed in a hurry, or not at all. His face is flushed, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched too tight. Anger lives there. Comfortable. Practiced. His boots leave wet prints on the floor as he moves forward without asking permission. Where is he? He barks. No greeting. No explanation. Just demand. The boy hears the voice before he sees the man. His body reacts instantly. Muscles lock. Breath catches. Hands tremble despite his best effort to stop them. This isn't fear of strangers. This is recognition. The kind that lives in the bones. The man's eyes sweep the room, already irritated, already offended that he isn't being obeyed fast enough. When he spots the boy near the workbench, something ugly curls into a smile. There you are. 3 words. Ownership disguised as relief. That's my kid. The sentence lands heavy. Not because it's loud. Because it's final. The room goes cold in a way no heater can fix. The boy doesn't move. He can't. Because this is the man who decides what happens later. When witnesses are gone. When explanations don't matter. This is the man who controls the hours after dark. The bikers don't shout. Don't rise all at once. They do something worse. They stand. Not aggressively. Deliberately. One steps forward. Then another. And another. Leather. Steel. Silence. A wall forms without a word spoken. The man scoffs, swaying slightly as he takes another step. What's this? Some kind of joke. He points at the boy, without looking away from the men. He's got chores. He's coming home. No one moves aside. The boy's eyes dart between them, calculating again. Measuring consequences. Wondering if this protection is real or temporary. Because temporary protection can be dangerous. One of the bikers speaks, calm and level. His shift isn't over. The man laughs. It's a harsh, barking sound. Shift? He's not an employee. He's a foster kid. The word foster drips with implication. With paperwork. With power. Like a badge. The man steps closer, trying to break the line with his presence alone. You people think you can just take him? Fill his head with ideas? Ideas. As if dignity were contagious. As if safety were rebellion. The boy flinches when the man's voice rises. It's small, but everyone sees it. The villain doesn't. Or worse, he does and doesn't care. One of the bikers steps forward just enough to block the man's path. Not touching him. Not threatening. Just there. You'll lower your voice, he says. Not a request. Or you'll leave. The room holds its breath. This isn't how the man is used to being spoken to. Authority has always been on his side. Teachers. Caseworkers. Forms signed without reading too closely. People too busy or too tired to look past surface explanations. He straightens, offended. You don't tell me what to do. That's my kid. The biker doesn't blink. Not right now. That's when the man's face twists. Not rage. Something colder. You don't know what he's like, he says, jerking his chin toward the boy. Lazy. Clumsy. Always messing up. You leave him alone for 5 minutes and he stops himself. Too late. Silence snaps tight. The boy stares at the floor. Because he knows what comes next when sentences trail off like that. The biker's voice drops. You want to finish that thought? The man swallows. The alcohol dulls his edges, but not his instincts. He glances around and realizes, maybe for the first time, that no one here is laughing. No one is impressed. No one is afraid of him. That's dangerous. He points at the boy again. You're coming home. Now. The boy doesn't move. The pause is brief. But it's the longest moment of his life. Because choosing not to move is choosing consequences. The biker beside him speaks, not to the man, but to the boy. You stay. 2 words. They land like armor. The man's eyes flash. You think this ends here? He snarls. You think I won't remember this? Everyone knows what that means. Phone calls. Complaints. Punishment later, where no one can see. He backs toward the door, fury simmering under a forced grin. He'll be home in an hour, he says. Or I come back. The threat hangs in the air long after the door slams shut. The boy's knees finally give. He doesn't fall, but he sways. Someone steadies him without making a big deal of it. No one cheers. No one celebrates. Because this wasn't a victory. This was a warning. They all know it. The man didn't lose control. He lost patience. And men like that always collect what they believe they're owed. The boy whispers, barely audible, "I should go." The words hurt more than the shouting ever did. Because he's trying to protect them. And that's how they know exactly how bad it is. Outside, the sound of an engine fades into the night. Inside, the clubhouse stays silent. Everyone understands the truth now. The villain isn't hiding anymore. And the consequences haven't even begun. If you can't stand bullies who hide behind authority, comment, "Not on my watch." Subscribing means you stand against people like him. Because silence protects abusers. And choosing a side changes everything. The bikers don't rush. That's the first mistake people make, thinking justice moves fast when anger shows up. It doesn't. It moves quiet, methodical, like men who've learned that charging in only gets people hurt. After the man leaves the clubhouse that night, nobody celebrates. Nobody pats themselves on the back. They clean up, lock doors, lower voices. The boy sits on the same bench he always does, staring at his hands like they belong to someone else. Everyone understands the same thing without saying it out loud. That man didn't come to reclaim his child. He came to remind everyone who holds power when witnesses disappear. So they start asking questions. Not loud ones. Not official ones. The kind of questions that don't show up on paper. Someone remembers seeing the boy walk home alone every night. Someone else remembers the bruises changing locations. Another remembers how the boy flinches when adults argue, even when the argument has nothing to do with him. Patterns emerge. And patterns don't lie. One of them starts writing things down. Dates. Times. What the boy looked like when he arrived. What he said. What he didn't. The excuses he repeated word for word like a script that had been rehearsed too many times. Bike accident. Fell downstairs. Clumsy. Always clumsy. But clumsy doesn't explain the precision of the fear. Clumsy doesn't explain why the boy never asks to stay late, only to stay long enough. Clumsy doesn't explain why he keeps checking the clock like time itself is dangerous. Someone suggests looking into the foster paperwork. That's when the room goes quiet again. Because paperwork is where truth goes to die. Files get lost. Cases get transferred. Counties change. Systems don't fail loudly. They fail politely. Still, they try. They call a number they weren't supposed to have. A favor owed from years ago. A woman on the other end listens longer than she should. "Give me a name," she says. They give it. And then they wait. The wait is the worst part. Because every hour that passes is an hour the boy has to go back. When the call finally comes, the voice on the other end is different. Tighter. Sharper. "Do you know how long he's been in that house?" Someone guesses. They're wrong. 12 years, the voice says. Same foster placement. Multiple counties. Silence. That doesn't happen. Not without reason. Foster placements change constantly. Kids get moved for far less. But this one stayed. Unquestioned. Uninterrupted. How? Someone asks. The answer is worse than anyone expects. The man didn't just foster the boy. He claimed him. Filed reports early. Submitted glowing evaluations of himself. Moved counties right before follow-ups were due. Every time questions got close, the trail reset. The system marked it as stability. Consistency. A success story. Then the real discovery hits. The boy's mother. Her name hasn't been spoken in years. She didn't sign over custody. Didn't lose rights in court. Didn't abandon her child. She disappeared. No follow-up. No investigation worth the name. A single line in an old report. Subject likely relocated voluntarily. Voluntarily. As if mothers vanish without shoes, without money, without their child. As if babies are found alone without questions. The man told authorities he found the infant abandoned. No witnesses. No evidence. Just his word. And the system accepted it. Because it always does. Checks were issued. Forms were stamped. Caseworkers rotated. The boy grew. The payments continued. And nobody looked back. Photos surfaced next. Not official ones. School pictures. Injuries half hidden by sleeves. A timeline of bruises that no one connected until now. Bruise on the arm. 2 weeks later, ribs. Then face. Always just far enough apart to seem accidental. Always just plausible enough to ignore. Dates line up with county transfers. With missed visits. With clerical delays. The system didn't just fail the boy. It protected the man. Because paperwork doesn't feel fear. And databases don't see flinches. Someone finally says it out loud. This wasn't neglect. The word hangs there, inadequate. This was exploitation. The man didn't raise the boy. He used him. Used his silence. Used his fear. Used a system built on trust without verification. And the most horrifying part? It worked. For over a decade. When the evidence is finally stacked together, photos, records, dates, injuries, it tells a story no one can unsee. Not of a single bad guardian, but of dozens of missed chances. Every transfer form that wasn't read carefully. Every visit rescheduled. Every excuse accepted because it was easier than digging deeper. The system that was supposed to protect him only asked one question. Is the paperwork complete? No one asked. Is the child safe? Now they have to look. Not because they want to, because they can't pretend anymore. The file is reopened. Words like urgent and immediate review appear where indifference once lived. But it doesn't feel like victory. It feels late. Too late for the bruises already healed. Too late for the nights the boy learned how to be quiet. Too late for the mother who never came back because no one ever looked for her hard enough. The bikers don't cheer. They sit with the weight of it. Because they know the truth now. The villain wasn't just one man. It was a system that trusted forms more than faces. That rewarded consistency over curiosity. That confused silence for stability. And let a child disappear in plain sight. If you believe abusers shouldn't be protected by paperwork, smash like, comment, and more silence if the system needs to be held accountable. Because evil doesn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes it hides in files, stamped, approved, and ignored. The courtroom doesn't look the way people imagine justice should. There are no dramatic speeches. No swelling music. No sudden miracles. Just beige walls. Hard benches. A clock that ticks too loudly. The boy sits with his feet barely touching the floor, hands folded in his lap the way he's been taught to sit when adults are deciding his life. He doesn't fidget. Doesn't slouch. He knows better than to draw attention when outcomes are fragile. Across the room, the man stares straight ahead. Jaw tight. Hands clenched. Not afraid, annoyed. Like this is an inconvenience, not an ending. That tells you everything. The judge flips through papers. Evidence. Dates. Photos. Reports that should have been enough years ago but weren't. The kind of paperwork that only matters once someone finally cares enough to connect it. The room feels heavy. Then the judge looks up. Her voice is calm. Practiced. But there's something different in her eyes. Something tired and human. She doesn't ask about placements. She doesn't ask about logistics. She asks the one question that changes everything. Where do you want to go? The boy freezes. Because no one has ever asked him that before. Not where he's assigned. Not what's available. Not what's easiest for the system. What he wants. For a second, the room disappears. He thinks of the yellow house. The careful silence. The rehearsed excuses. Then he thinks of grease-stained floors. Of rules that made sense. Of a broom handed to him like trust. He lifts his head. And he points. The motion is small. The impact is not. The room goes silent. Not shocked silence. Understanding silence. The man turns, eyes wide, disbelief cracking through his anger. But the boy doesn't look at him. Not even once. He doesn't owe him that. The judge nods slowly. And just like that, authority changes hands. The handcuffs click softly. Almost anticlimactic. The man shouts something about rights and mistakes and misunderstandings, but his voice fades as he's led away. The boy never looks back. Not out of hatred. Out of freedom. That night, there's no celebration. No speeches. No victory laps. Just a room.
Small. Clean.
Quiet. A bed with sheets chosen just for him. A lamp that stays on if he wants it to. A door that doesn't need to be locked from the inside. In the corner, a toolbox waits. His name is written on it in permanent marker. It's not much, but it's his. He lies down fully dressed, unsure if taking off his shoes is allowed. Old habits die slowly. The ceiling feels too high. The silence too gentle. Safety takes time to trust.
But sleep comes anyway. Deep.
Uninterrupted. The kind that doesn't flinch at every sound. In the morning, sunlight cuts across the floor. For the first time, it doesn't feel like a countdown. The future isn't mapped out yet. There are still questions. Still healing. But the most important thing has already happened. Someone noticed. Not a system. Not a form. Not a checklist. People. People who stood still instead of stepping aside. Who chose responsibility over comfort. Who understood that family isn't blood, it's presence. The boy doesn't need heroes. He needed witnesses. He needed someone to say, you get a choice. And now he has one. If you believe family is who shows up, subscribe, share this story so people like Clive don't get to hide anymore. And comment below, what would you have done if a kid asked you for a chance? Because stories like this don't end when the screen goes dark. They continue in what we choose to notice and who we refuse to ignore. Stay with us. More stories like this are coming, and every one of them matters. If you enjoy stories told like a movie, click on subscribe for more powerful stories.